I'm Minister Jerry Woody Jr.,
And I am Minister Carmen Elena Woody.
and we're here to discuss Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. It has been said anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her a victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Matthew 5:31-32.
This passage may appear random in the flow of the Sermon on the Mount. However, it's important not to separate Jesus' words from verse 27. The seventh commandment, you shall not commit adultery. Matthew 5:27-28, you have heard the commandment that says, you must not commit adultery. But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. The overall theme of the Sermon on the Mount is that Jesus required more than mere performatistic righteousness from his people. He requires holistic righteousness in both our hearts and actions. This teaching on divorce is an extension of Jesus' elaboration on the way one might commit adultery in their hearts. Verse 28. Jesus referenced Deuteronomy 24:1-4, which the Pharisees were abusing for the sake of gratifying their sinful desires behind the facades of the holiness. The idea was to protect the sanctity of marriage by making divorce a difficult process, something echoed in this session of the sermon. The passage in Deuteronomy, as well as Matthew 19, verses 3-12, concur with Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount that God never intended for the marriage covenant to be broken. Unlike the Pharisees, who thought divorce was a license to get rid of their wives for any reason. The reality also is that when the Pharisees came and they were asking this question about divorce, it was more like a trick question. They were trying to find or trap Jesus based on what he said, because they already knew the law. Even the fact that they were questioning him about Deuteronomy 24, which talks about divorce and putting the wife and giving a certificate of divorce and things like that, it was just because they were trying to entrap Jesus in his own words. But Jesus was dealing with the hypocrisy of their hearts.
Divorce is never the idea. In the beginning, when God told Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, he never gave the slightest hint that the marriage relationship was to be anything but lifelong. The first mention of divorce in the Bible is found in the writing of Moses, penned hundreds of years after humanity's creation. Moses permitted divorce, but it was never encouraged by God. As Jesus explained to the Pharisees, Moses permitted divorce only as a concession to your hard hearts, but it was not what God originally intended. Jesus affirmed that God's intentions was monogamous, lifelong relationship.
Marriage and divorce. One of the ways that marriage bond can be broken is through death, as is stated in 1 Corinthians chapter 7:39. Jesus does recognize divorce also because of sexual immorality, which is found in Matthew 19:8, and abandonment, 1 Corinthians 7:15, if one of the parties in the marriage abandons the marriage.
Reasons why couples uncouple. This is a list of reasons why couples uncouple or get a divorce. Lack of compatibility, loss of identity, irreconcilable differences, lack of communication, physical abuse, or constant arguing.
Yes, and that you see some of them also lack of intimacy, financial issues, loss of identity, mental or physical or illness, disabilities, irreconcilable differences, as you mentioned. There are different reasons why couples uncouple.
And they just grow apart.
Yes. Divorce in the Bible is heavily regulated. Deuteronomy 24, as we mentioned already, verses 1 to 4, limits reasons for divorce to sexual unfaithfulness, which is infidelity. And Jesus agreed, as we again in Matthew 19, verses 3 to 10, Matthew 5, verse 32, and also remarriage encourages for widows and widowers who can't handle or can't seem to just deal with the stress of being alone. So it's also, and that's found in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 8 to 9. It's also assumed a divorced person will remarry. So as long as the marriage was legitimate, as we already discussed, some of the legitimate reasons why divorce is allowed.
Paul just repeated what Jesus said about divorce. General principle: don't separate what God has joined. And this is coming out of 1 Corinthians 7, 10 through 11. Don't treat separation as divorce, as it says in verse 12 through 16. If an unbeliever wants to leave the marriage, don't stop them.
Exactly. Sometimes this could be a separation, a time apart where the couple is still working, the issues in their marriage.
The blessing of marriage. It is a covenant of partnership. It's a safe place for children. It allows for men and women to thrive in their ministry. It's a picture of Christ and his church.
Yes. And as we said before, divorce breaks all of this. God hates divorce, but he allows it as a concession. Matthew 19:8, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard. When the heart gets hardened, that itself, you're already divorced if your heart is hard. You're not willing to obey anything. The selfishness, all these things come in your heart. But it was not this way from the beginning. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 7:15, God has called us to live in peace. The beautiful thing is to live in peace. Yes. The uncouple. Now, this is one of the things, divorce and the crooked road to recovery. One of the first steps in recovery from a broken marriage is to find ways to heal the divorce that happened within our souls. The most crucial step to recovery, in other words, is the admission that you can't recover yourself. The crooked and winding path of healing he will lead you on will hurt, yes, but will also make you whole. And you will lose yourself, yes, but you will find the Lord hard at work, recreating you in an image that reflects his own. And all along the way, you'll find God by your side is the only one sure and lasting treasure that gives meaning and purpose to your life. These are just some words to encourage those that find themselves that are divorced and they might find themselves in a crooked road, but know that God makes the crooked road straight.
Amen.
And he could recover all those things and all those hurts. God can heal your heart.
And here are some of the ways to keep your marriage healthy. Keep God first. Pray together. Have devotions together. Worship together. Go to church together.
Go to marriage conferences and workshops. There's always help. Get Christian counseling. There's couples retreat. There's date nights. Different things and different tools that you can do to keep a marriage healthy and fresh.
Thank you for watching another Nuggets of Hope. We hope this really bless you, and God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for joining us in this week's Nuggets of Hope. We hope you continue to join us, and we hope that you are blessed by each teaching. You can join us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. God bless you.